Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I make this special video because it's been on my heart for some time. So this video is about Ukraine and Jewish people in modern times. Why I'm making this video is because, well, first of all, our president is Jewish. And then second of all, so the Victory Day is coming up 9th of May, which celebrates the victory over Nazi regime. It's a controversial holiday in Ukraine, because it has to do with Russia and Soviet Union and painful historical memories that we have. But my grandfather was fighting in this war, and I think it's a good celebration to honor the soldiers. So we are now in modern Ukraine. Let's talk about life of Jewish people in Ukraine. Briefly about history. So Poland had the largest Jewish population in the world, and Western Ukraine was a part of Poland, so we also had the largest Jewish population. And before the war, 1/5 of population of Lviv was Jewish. And I think this city was good for Jewish people because it was a wealthy city, wealthy by trade, so artisan skills, the knowledge of languages, the knowledge of trades and financial skills of Jewish people could be useful in Lviv at that time. Also, according to Israel News, Odessa was one of the largest Jewish strongholds in Europe for centuries. Ukraine is heavily inhabited. It was heavily inhabited by Jewish people. There was a large migration of Ukrainian Jewish people to Israel, but we still have many Jewish people, and many of them are not full-blood Jewish. They are mixed. They are in Ukraine, and my argument is that they do not disclose their Jewish identity. And also my argument is that you should not ask people in Ukraine if they are Jewish or not. We know this is an unspoken rule. Maybe if you're a foreigner, you will be treated differently, but among Ukrainians, it's a risky subject for us to talk about. And also I had a problem. One Jewish person was helping me, and I was not careful, and I asked if he was Jewish, and so at that point the help stopped. So this topic came up with my British client. Hasidic Judaism, it was a spiritual revival movement in the territory of contemporary Western Ukraine in the 18th century, which spread through Eastern Europe, and now mainly Hasidic Jews are in America and Israel, but also in England. But every year there is a pilgrimage of tens of thousands Hasidim to the city of Uman to celebrate Rosh Hashana, kibbutz. And I want to advise you that if you're one of those people traveling to Uman, you should come to Lviv to see Lviv before arriving at Uman. Do Jewish people feel comfortable in Ukraine? I'm not sure. I think it's like a painting. Life in Ukraine is like a painting that's made of different brush strokes with different hues. And so you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative. But the main point is that Ukraine now is changing so much, changing at its core. It's getting its own identity. And you can be a bystander. You can come to Ukraine to observe this change and to, in the future, to say, I've seen this. Or you can allow Ukraine to change you also. And I think as Ukraine is changing, the world will change. And you can allow changes in yourself as you visit Ukraine. So now as we celebrate the victory over Nazi regime, so in reality, according to the video above, it's a video of a Ukrainian Jewish man from Kyiv. He had a Jewish name, and he was raised in Ukraine, and he said that he was prosecuted. Now this happened after the war. He was called a dirty Jew, and he was told to go back home. Well, he did go back to Israel, but his story is more complex than that, and Ukraine has played, I think, an important role in his life. So I was advised by a Jewish person. He's 50% Jewish. He does not hide his identity among his close circles, but he advised me not to talk about Jewish people in Ukraine about my trip to Israel, he would listen to me for a few days, and then he'd be like, why don't you just stop talking about Jewish people? You can see that the Jewish people in Ukraine, they pick up this mood and something in the environment which we might not notice, but they are sensitive to it. The response is that they will not really disclose their Jewish identity. A few years back, I was with my Christian community in church, and it was like a few hundred people, and the leader of our community, he decided to bring up the Jewish topic. Basically, he was saying it's nice that Jewish people, even though they've been persecuted for so long, for centuries, and they've been scattered, they still maintain their Jewish identity. And then the silence followed. That silence, that was a little bit too much silent and a few seconds too long. And this feeling of easiness that I felt, and me also, I felt this uneasiness. There were Jewish people in this crowd, and I can just imagine they picked up this mood. Of course, they do not disclose their identity, but things are changing as we speak, because he continues talking about it here and there, and we have actually lectures by Israeli visitors, and some people are really eating it up. So for some people, it's really passionate, interesting topic now. So when I was little, in a small town, I was taken to church on Sunday, and there the priest, at some point, Ukrainian churches pray for Israel, for Jewish people. And I remember hearing these words, and I was like, look, I'm Ukrainian in Ukraine, and this is my priest praying here about Jewish people. Why? Why are we talking about Israel? Why are we talking about Jewish people? In liturgy, which is very Orthodox liturgy in Ukraine, there are words «Світися, світися, новий Єрусалиме, радій нині і веселися, Сіоне». Israel and Jewish people are in our prayers, but I think that Ukrainian people are not always conscious of this. I was handing out flyers, the invitation to a prayer, to a church on the street, and I came across a Ukrainian older man. He was nationalistic. And he said, yes, I go to church and I am Ukrainian. There were Jewish and Polish people in my city, but my family is Ukrainian. And I noticed hues of negative mood about Jewish people. And I said, what's wrong with Jewish people? And he said, well, you know the Jewish people. And I said, well, I'm Jewish. And he said, no, you are not. I know that videos should be made without any side noise, but please be patient. My neighbors are finishing the construction, and I'm very happy for them. They woke up early in the morning to do this. He was a little bit confused. So Ukrainians, we are very emotional, and it could be either this, that you, without any explanation, and you just love people. This big heart, and I hope that if you're a Jewish person, when you come to Ukraine, you will get on that side of Ukrainians. But there's also like unexplained suspicion and fear to the point where you make fairy tales for your children about how bad Jewish people are and that you should avoid them. A little bit of history. Why I know this is because my friend, who I was investigating this topic, and he learned about it and he told me it's not common knowledge in Ukraine. You know about ghetto in Lviv in 1941. You can go to walking tour, like Lviv body walking tour, Jewish tour, and you can learn about it. There was also Yanovsky concentration camp, which I think it was one of the biggest in the world, but not so well known in Ukraine still. Also, there's a bridge which is called Bridge of Death. This region now is heavily visited by foreigners, and it's a touristic attractive spot. But, you know, there's that side of the story. This is where German police shot and killed thousands of elderly and sick Jews as they were passing the rail bridge. There's also Lviv pogroms and massacres by German death squads and also by Ukrainian nationalists. And there is Tango of Death, which I saw the poster of Tango of Death performance in Poland. People don't know the origin of this term. It came from Lviv, from Yanovsky concentration camp. It was brutal, inhumane torture and execution of Jewish people and also talented musicians to a melody which nobody knows this melody because it was so deadly and terrifying. You can ask your Ukrainian friends, or if you're Ukrainian watching this video, you can investigate this information. And again, I know this only that I was told this information, but it's not common knowledge in Ukraine, and especially in Lviv. Also, Ukrainians do not have Jewish names like Sarah, David. It's not common in Ukraine. Well, now some young families name their children these names, maybe because they are Protestant, maybe because they open the Bible and read it, maybe they are Jewish families. But as I said, Ukraine is changing as we speak, and it's changing at its core, it's changing its identity. So in few months, in a year, maybe things will be very different. And so I was attacked by Odessa Jews verbally. We were in a different country, not in Ukraine, not in Israel. And they were like, so, we are Jewish, yes? Мы жиды? And they scared me, like they were doing drugs. In that country it was not a big deal, but for Ukraine it's a big deal. For me it was a big deal. They scared me, so I decided I don't really like to have Jewish people in my close circles, and I will keep my distance from Jewish people. Jewish people that I do talk to, it kind of looks like this. And I think that the Jewish component of them, I try to isolate and set it apart. But I think it will be nice for me to tell myself that they're Jewish, and this video is dedicated to my Israeli friend who came to Lviv for his vacation. And thank you for choosing Lviv, and thank you for having coffee with me and being patient and helping me to figure out some life strategies. I dedicate this video to you because we sort of discussed this topic as a Jewish origin of us came out. So several years back I investigated the subject of Jews in Ukraine. In Wikipedia I've read articles that Jewish people of Eastern Europe, they are emotional and they are irrational compared to Jews of northern countries, and I felt like they were looked down upon a little bit. I'm sorry I cannot find this article anymore. You can just believe me. I had this thought, I kept it in my heart, and I'm observing now the Jewish people in Ukraine, and I wonder if this is true or not. I'm not sure yet. It could be true. But what I can tell you is that Jewish people in Ukraine are very strong. They were strong because we have to fight for survival, and we have to fight every day and every minute of our life. I noticed that they are bound by really they struggle, and they are struggling with things that I cannot even imagine. Like my life in Ukraine is beautiful. If I will look at life of Jewish people in Lviv, some of them, they are really going through some tough trials, and I don't even know when there will be an end to these trials. But when they will fight these inner problems, I think that they will be incredibly powerful. I was in another country there were several Jewish people and non-Jewish people. I was the only girl in the company, and I knew my job was just to be pretty and smile and to just maintain happy, beautiful environment. I was observing them talk, and I noticed that Ukrainian Jewish guy in that company, I noticed that he was pretty strong and pretty powerful. And we have this saying in Ukraine, I think the Jewish people do. Like something they do that's very silly, that kind of looks dumb to you. I know a Jewish girl that's like worshipping multiple gods now, and she's doing it with such a big heart and such devotion. And I look at it and I think it's really silly. And in the past, when I observed these things, I tended to be a little bit judgmental and to separate myself from these people and to isolate myself from this influence, because I thought it was not good and not healthy. But I realize now that the Jewish people in Ukraine, they can be the subject of powerful seduction and powerful deceit. I cannot judge people. Like I do not know what they are going through internally and what fights they are fighting spiritually. I really think that there are forces playing against some people that are causing them to struggle, and things that are so easy for me just could be really difficult for them. I think that my job is not to participate in any silly, stupid things, but to be supportive and kind and to show my love. some churches in Ukraine, they open up the Bible and read it, and they understand that part of their identity is in Judaism in Israel, and we have the biggest church in Europe that has to do a lot with Jewish people. Of course, praying for Jewish people, and so that's nice. We are praying that this blanket that's hiding many secrets, many things that are not spoken, that this blanket will be thrown off, uncovered. The truth is that Ukraine consists of different nationalities and races. It's much more diverse than Ukrainians want to admit to themselves, and different nationalities and races have their different struggles that we cannot even imagine. For example, I suspect that Ukrainians with Russian roots are the ones who are fighting the war with Russia right now. They are the ones who are doing the biggest fight now. Every nation and living in Ukraine, they have their own fights and their own struggles that we cannot imagine, but we should just be supportive and we should educate ourselves. First, foremost me, because I think I'm very uneducated and very ignorant. And I think Ukrainians, they tend to ignore painful topics like Holodomor, like Chernobyl, also the Jewish topic. We just want to close our eyes on it. So I was searching for myself and searching to do some activity which I'm very passionate about. And I got online and I typed in the best activity in the world, and I found Israel. And I was like, oh, nice, Israel is being developed nation ahead of others doing this activity, so nice. But I clicked on the link and I noticed that I can participate in a mass activity in a few months. It was like a dance auditions. And thanks to my friend who allowed me to stay in her place, I came to Israel to participate in this dance. But I was very skeptical. And I was very cautious. I was expecting the worst to happen in Israel, and when I flew to Israel, my friend picked me up. I know him from Ukraine. He took me to show me the Orthodox region near Jerusalem. We hung out, and then he had to run some errands. He dropped me off back in airport, and I sat down and cried. I cried because I thought how terrible Israel is. I had such bad expectations of Israel, and I was so stressed out, expecting something bad, that my whole day was really messed up, and I really upset the person who was selling the tickets because I thought that he was like going to cheat me. I cannot tell you that I enjoyed Israel because I was very cautious. And I was watching myself constantly, and I was watching people. But if you are struggling with something, you should face it. So I'm happy that I faced it. So in conclusion, I think Jewish people in Ukraine now, in Lviv, have different experiences. There could be very much some negativity, some ignorance, and there could be a lot of love and support, as especially churches are now rediscovering their Jewish component of their identity. I think the Jewish people in Ukraine struggle, and they're going through things that I cannot even imagine, and my job is to love them and support, right? Didn't fit in. So as we are celebrating the Victory Day over Nazi Germany, we should think about our attitude towards other races and other nationalities. I think there's a little bit more self-education we need to do. I should start with myself. Whether we like it or not, there are different races and nationalities living in the territory of Ukraine, and we need to understand that. We need to understand that what other people are going through can be a different, unique experience, and we need to be loving and supporting, because everyone has his purpose in life.